AEW President and CEO Tony Khan says that Mercedes Mone is perfect to be the face of All Elite Wrestling. Plenty of details on that. Plus, an update on Matt Hardy being at WWE Raw this week in North Carolina. Dave Meltzer feels it's a slap in the face to All Elite Wrestling. Sammy Guevara issues a statement after reports of his suspension from AEW. Femi reportedly is receiving praise from NXT officials. An NXT Tag Team Title #1 Contenders match is set for next week. The NXT Women's Championship match is set for NXT Stand and Deliver. We have the ratings for Saturday's edition of AEW Collision. Also details on how AEW is going to manage its talent during WrestleMania week. And we have the ratings for this week's edition of Monday Night Raw. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Mercedes Mone and some pretty strong comments from AEW's owner, CEO, President Tony Khan about Mone possibly being perfect to be the face of All Elite Wrestling. After Mone made her debut at Big Business last week, she and Khan appeared together for an interview with NBC Boston. Khan was asked why he believes Mone, as one of the faces of AEW, is so important to the brand and bringing in new audiences. Khan responded by praising Mone as a wrestler and pointing to her charisma and how much she loves wrestling and how much she loves the fans. Here's what Tony Khan had to say. He said, quote, "Mercedes, one of the greatest wrestlers in the world. She's going to help bring in new audiences from all over the world. It's such a great question because I think not only is she going to come in as one of the faces of AEW, one of the top stars, but she's also one of the best wrestlers, one of the most charismatic people, somebody who loves wrestling. And I'm so glad you asked because to me, Mercedes not only is somebody who loves the wrestling business, loves getting in the ring and wrestling, but loves the fans. And I think that's what we're all about in AEW. I think that's why Mercedes is perfect to be the face of AEW." Now, Mercedes, as I mentioned, arrived in AEW by cutting her debut promo at the beginning of Big Business last Wednesday. At the end of the night, she saved Willow Nightingale from an attack by Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Now back in action, Mone's AEW debut match will be the first time she's actually wrestled since suffering an ankle injury in May of last year. AEW hasn't announced when Mone's first match for the promotion will take place, but she is set to appear on tonight's episode of AEW Dynamite from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So what are your thoughts on Tony Khan's comments? Do you think that Mercedes Mone can be the face of AEW? Who do you think is the face of AEW? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comment section below. Now, a lot of people were talking about Matt Hardy being in the stands for AEW's rival WWE Monday Night Raw this past Monday. Now, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, Matt Hardy was at Raw on March 18, but he was just visiting. Fightful noted on Monday's Raw post-show that Matt's wife, Rebby, posted a TikTok video of the two at WWE Raw in Raleigh, North Carolina, not far from where they live. This fueled speculation that Hardy was there meeting with WWE, but Fightful have been told that isn't the case. Hardy is still technically under contract with AEW, and the two sides have had a dialogue. On Monday, a friend of Rebby invited the two to sit in their suite at the PNC Arena for Raw. The Hardys would go on to visit for about 90 minutes. Hardy will be doing an Extreme Live of Matt Hardy taping on Friday, April 5th at the Monster Factory in New Jersey, just outside Philadelphia, during WrestleMania week. He'll also be doing a live seminar and Q&A. In addition, he's appearing at WrestleCon and Squared Circle Expo in the coming weeks too. But Dave Meltzer had quite a bit to say about this when it comes to Hardy visiting Raw as well. Now, speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer gave his take on the situation and noted that while it was not a big deal for him visiting his former company, his wife sharing the video of the visit may kind of change things slightly. Here's what Meltzer had to say. He said, quote, "Matt Hardy was at Raw with his wife and they posted a video. I mean, him being at Raw, he lives in Cameron, which is near Raleigh. It's his area. Him going to Raw is not really a big deal. Him posting the video kind of changes it a little bit. His contract with AEW is coming due as well." He then continued on because Meltzer and co-host Brian Alvarez then discussed the crossover backstage at both AEW and WWE shows and how this is not frowned upon in the business. However, Meltzer reiterated that Hardy posting a video of him backstage at Raw kind of changed the situation a bit. He said, quote, "The posting of the video is a bigger deal because then it's like a slap in the face of your own company in a lot of ways doing that." So do you agree with what Meltzer is saying? Do you think it is a slap in the face to AEW to have that video posted of him being at Raw, WWE's, a competitor to AEW. So do you think it's a slap in the face? Let me know your thoughts and reaction to that in the comments section below. Now, plenty of people are still talking about Sammy Guevara after reports that he's been suspended by AEW for a match involving a Hardy brother, that being Jeff Hardy. Now, Sammy Guevara has reportedly been suspended by AEW, and while the suspension has not been publicly confirmed by AEW nor Guevara, a bit of an update in his most recent vlog. Frequently keeping his fans up to date with his life's events throughout his time in AEW via his vlog, Guevara didn't make specific mention of his suspension, however, displayed a message on the screen in the vlog. Now, text on screen at the end of the vlog read the following. We can actually get the picture up right there. It says, quote, "And to the people who support me, whether it be from the beginning or in the middle, or maybe this is your first video you've watched of mine, I just want to say thank you. I understand that I am a person who has made mistakes, but I am also a person who has tried to be better. Roll with the punches is a saying that I truly understand now at 30 years old. Life will throw a lot at you, but it's how you deal with those adversities that make you who you are. I know who I am, and I know what I'm going after. See you at the top." Now, as I mentioned, when it comes to Sammy Guevara and his suspension, he's been out of AEW since being defeated by Powerhouse Hobbs on the February 24 edition of AEW Collision. It was reported by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select that AEW has since suspended Sammy Guevara in relation to a recent match with Jeff Hardy after concussion protocol was not followed. So what do you make of Guevara's statement there on his vlog? Now, let's talk about Femi. First of all, let's talk about possibly his opponents during WrestleMania weekend. In an in-ring segment on last night's episode of NXT, a new championship match for NXT Stand and Deliver was teased. Stand and Deliver takes place on Saturday, April 6, earlier in the day before WrestleMania Night 1, after a backstage segment featured NXT North American Champion Femi clearly making his way to the ring. Instead, Josh Briggs got a segment kicked off by emerging through the crowd. Briggs called out Femi after Femi laid out Briggs' former partner Brooks Jensen, vowing to take on Femi for the North American Championship. However, this would not only bring out the champ, but also Dijak, who interrupted the pair to make his intentions for the title known. With both Josh Briggs and Dijak with their sights set on Femi and the NXT North American Championship, it isn't clear which direction the match will take. While there are still 2 episodes of NXT before WrestleMania and NXT Stand and Deliver, it is possible there could be a match between Briggs and Dijak to see who will face Femi. However, given the way the segment was positioned, it certainly seemed like fans could be headed for a triple threat match at NXT Stand and Deliver as well. But speaking of Femi, reportedly, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select and Fightful Select's Corey Brennan, apparently he's getting a lot of praise within WWE right now. Of course, NXT has a litany of stars ready to be the next generation of WWE superstars, and one that has garnered a lot of fan support is the NXT North American Champion Femi. Fans are not the only ones impressed with Femi, however. Fightful Select's Corey Brennan was told that officials in NXT have been impressed with Femi's performances since becoming the NXT North American Champion, with one NXT source noting that Femi is expected to do big things in WWE, describing him as someone WWE views as a future WWE Champion. Officials reportedly have been surprised by Femi's development in the short time he has been on television, with the viewpoint of him being the total package being a common one backstage. One source also noted that WWE sees Femi as a source of untapped potential, and they do not have any plans to rush Femi to the main roster despite his surging popularity. So do you agree with the backstage view of Femi that he's going to be a future star? Let me know your reaction and takes on Femi too. Now, speaking of NXT, we now are closer to finding out who's going to be challenging for the NXT Tag Team Championships during WrestleMania weekend as well. Earlier this month, NXT General Manager Ava announced that 6 duos would receive the opportunity to earn the challenging spot in the NXT Tag Team Championship match at Stand and Deliver. And after 2 weeks of intense competition, the field of potential contenders has now been cut in half. Last night's episode of NXT featured 2 key tag team matches, Hank Walker and Tank Ledger versus the OC, and the No Quarter Catch Crew versus Axiom and Nathan Frazer. Despite the valiant efforts across the board, it was the OC and the Axiom Frazer pairing that emerged victorious respectively with these 2 victories. The OC and Axiom Fraser will now move on to face each other, in addition to the LWO's Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro in a triple threat tag team bout on the April 2nd episode of NXT. The winner of this three-way will take on the Wolf Dogs for the NXT Tag Team Championships at Stand and Deliver on April 6th. Now, coming out of this week's NXT, fans also learned that this upcoming NXT Tag Team Championship match could possibly be upgraded into a triple threat of its own. Following their loss on Raw this week, the Alpha Academy's Otis and Akira Tozawa approached Breaker and Corbin backstage with a compelling challenge. And after some added persuasion from Maxine Dupree, the Wolf Dogs agreed. As such, Tozawa and Otis will now battle the Wolf Dogs on the March 26th episode of NXT, under the stipulation that if Alpha Academy win, they will be added to the NXT Tag Team Championship match at the Stand and Deliver Premium Live event. It's not the only title match set for the PLE as well. The NXT Women's Championship match has now been confirmed too. The heated rivalry between Roxanne Perez and Lyra Valkyria is set to culminate in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. On Tuesday's episode of NXT, following an attack from Perez, NXT General Manager Ava made the match between Lyra Valkyria and the former champion. The General Manager was initially quite hesitant, but upon Valkyria's insistence, made the match for April 6th in Philadelphia. Perez has been a thorn in Valkyria's side all year, last facing Valkyria in a triple threat match that also involved Lola Vice at this year's NXT Vengeance Day event. Valkyria has been the champion since Halloween Havoc in October, where she dethroned Becky Lynch. Perez won the title in 2022 after winning that year's NXT Women's Breakout Tournament. Now, her title win was clouded in controversy by WWE's release of former champion Mandy Rose. Of course, as mentioned, Stand and Deliver will take place the same day as WrestleMania Night 1. Now, let's talk about the ratings for AEW Collision this past Saturday. Now, while it didn't quite translate into viewership for Dynamite days before, AEW went into this week's episode of Collision on Saturday with some buzz, fresh off Mercedes Moné's debut on Wednesday night. Unfortunately, though, for AEW, it doesn't appear the buzz helped out the Collision numbers either. WrestleNomics is reporting that Collision drew 393,000 total viewers and a 0.12 in the ever-important 18 to 49 demographic. Both numbers were down from the previous week, with total viewership descending 8% from 427,000, while the 18 to 49 was also down 8% from last week's 0.13 rating. Collision didn't face any competition from WWE that evening, but did go head-to-head against several college basketball games, and several conferences wrapped up their in-season tournaments. Now, in terms of the quarter-hour ratings, these come courtesy of WrestleNomics, so shout out to them and be sure to subscribe to their Patreon service. While the ratings were down, it was not due to the much talked about match between Bryan Danielson and Katsuyori Shibata. Opening the show and running into quarter hour 2, the Shibata-Danielson match drew 454,000 and a 0.13 in quarter hour 1, and finished with 441,000 and a 0.14 in quarter hour 2. The 454,000 viewers in quarter hour 1 represented the high point for the show in total viewership, while the 0.14 quarter hour 2 served as the high point in the 18 to 49, not counting the overrun. Following the end of Shibata-Danielson, Collision would tail off in total viewership, drawing between 369,000 and 395,000 between quarter hours 3, 4, and 5, while the 18 to 49 remained between a 0.11 and a 0.12. The show would crater, though, in quarter hour 6, which drew 338,000, a show low, and a 0.11. The second lowest quarter hour for the 18 to 49 behind quarter hour 5, which drew a 0.11. After a slightly better quarter hour 7, the show rebounded in quarter hour 8 with the House of Black versus Infantry match drawing 418,000 and a 0.13, a 17 and 16% increase from quarter hour 7. The show closing Adam Copeland promo also did well in the overrun, drawing 426,000 and a 0.14 rating as well. So what are your thoughts when it comes to the ratings for this Saturday's edition of AEW Collision? Now, this is quite interesting because there is going to be some AEW presence during WrestleMania week in Philadelphia, because that's where pro wrestling will be residing that week in the build-up to WrestleMania. Now, while the story of WrestleMania weekend has remained the 2 nights of WrestleMania, the slew of independent shows surrounding the event have also got quite a few headlines this week, particularly with the participation of WWE superstar Shayna Baszler at Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, which has been promoted by GCW. Now, though the show will also feature AEW Ring of Honor talent Johnny TV, Baszler's participation anticipation led to speculation that several independent promotions had been unable to secure AEW talent for the shows, leading them to hoping to contact WWE for use of talent instead. Now, there's a reason for that. PW Insider is reporting that AEW's philosophy regarding talents taking WrestleMania weekend bookings is that the promotion generally doesn't want talents wrestling that weekend unless it is for promotions AEW has working relationships with. This includes Japanese promotions like DDT Wrestling, Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling, and Stardom, with talents such as Billy Starks, Brian Keith, Willow Nightingale, and Mariah May all announced for shows under those banners that weekend. Now, despite their stance, AEW is willing to make exceptions to the rule in certain cases, explaining why talents like Johnny TV can work Bloodsport and other talents such as Jon Moxley have been able to work the show in the past. AEW also has no issues with talent making signing appearances during the weekend or appearing at the WrestleCon convention, which has become a WrestleMania weekend staple over the past several years. As such, the number one destination for fans to see AEW talent wrestle WrestleMania weekend appears to be Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor events. The Mania weekend tradition, which has continued ever since Tony Khan purchased Ring of Honor in 2022, will take place on April 4. The show is scheduled to feature Hikaru Shida challenging Athena for the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship and Mark Briscoe facing Eddie Kingston for the Ring of Honor World title as well. And finally, we have the ratings for this Monday's edition of Raw on USA Network. The March 18 edition of Raw, which aired 2 weeks prior to WrestleMania 40, saw a dip in viewership and the key demo rating. WrestleNomics has reported that the show held at the PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina, garnered 1.69 million viewers, a 4% decrease compared to the previous week's show. The key demographic also saw a slight decline with a rating of a 0.55 compared to a 0.56 in the previous week. The report also stated that the show was the number one rated show in the key demographic on Monday. This week's Raw, held in front of a sold-out audience in Raleigh, kicked off with a bang as the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, came face-to-face, with the former landing a super kick on his brother before Cody Rhodes came to make the save. DIY defeated the Creed brothers in an exciting, fast-paced tag team match, punching their ticket to WrestleMania 40. They will join Awesome Truth and The New Day in the six-pack challenge ladder match at the Show of Shows for the undisputed tag team titles. Cody Rhodes continued his war of words with The Rock with an impassioned promo, while Gunther and Sami Zayn had a contract signing for their Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania 40. The show ended with a last woman standing match between Nia Jax and Becky Lynch, where the Irish star got the better of her bitter rival, following which the man's WrestleMania opponent Rhea Ripley confronted her, and the two came face-to-face to close out the show. Next week's Raw, which will emanate from the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Illinois, will see the city's own CM Punk return to the show. WWE has also announced that Ivy Nile will face Candice LeRae in a singles match, while Ricochet is set to go one-on-one with the Judgment Day's JD McDonough, while Andrade will face an unnamed opponent. But there you go, guys. It's the latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.